You felt the power, didn't you? That was awesome. You know, no matter how many years I've been away from Catholicism, sometimes in a pinch, that's right where I go. It's interesting. Very interesting. That was beautiful. You know, we are welcoming back the large group of people that went to China for a few weeks. Glad you're back. And today, over 30 women are at a women's retreat, so they're all having fun. The talk today is Fear to Love. And we've been using Roger Thiel's book, This Life is Joy. It's interesting, in chapter 8 in this book, the first sentence in chapter 8 is, fear gets a bad rap. Now, he's a minister of Mile High Church, several thousand people, so I've got to listen to this. Fear gets a bad rap. Because he challenges us to think of fear as a friend. But so often when somebody's not feeling right or things aren't going right, somebody might say, well, you're operating out of fear. Not always true. But you can be watching the news too much and operating out of fear, and we know that. But it also can become a habit. Fear can become a habit, and it can take precedence over our true nature, which is spirit. So it's interesting that we all experience fear at some times, but we don't know that it can be a friend. Paul and I were talking about this because I always like to add personal stories to what I'm sharing, and I could not think of a time when I was gripped by fear until I went way back, about 50 years. But my husband and I lived in Ohio at the time. It wasn't Paul, it was someone else. And we had an airplane. It was a little Cherokee 140. And we flew all across the country in this plane. It was a really good little plane. And one time we were flying from Ohio to the West Coast, and we landed at a small airport in Colorado to get refueled. When we took off, we climbed higher and higher, and I was noticing clouds forming underneath us. Well, my husband had a license to fly by visual rules where you can see the ground, but he did not have a license to fly in the clouds where you can't see the ground, or neither did we have the instruments in the plane to keep us where we should be if you didn't have sight of the ground. So the ground is disappearing, and I'm going, the ground is disappearing. He goes, don't worry, we're above the mountains, we're okay. And then the ground disappears. And I'm like, he said, what's wrong? I said, my fingers are numb. Then I'm going, he said, what's wrong? I said, my arms are becoming numb. We need to turn around. And you're like, okay already. So we turned around and we went back to the airport. And during that moment, I was thinking of my coworkers a year before who flew from Ohio to Florida, and they were flying at night, same situation. Flew right into a mountain and they were killed. So that was kind of in the back of my mind. So we went back to the airport, landed, and we went into a restaurant, and I ordered a glass of iced tea. So she brings me this iced tea, and I took one look at it, and in the bottom of the glass was a metal screw. And I said to the waitress, there's a screw in my iced tea. And she said, well, it won't hurt you. It probably came from the ice machine. But you know what I took it as a sign of? I almost got screwed. And I realized I had a friend who made me say what I needed to say and do what I needed to do. So it's interesting. Sometimes people say there's only two emotions, love or fear. And when newborn babies come into this world, people say they only have two fears, the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. I was thinking about it this week, and I thought, but you know what? I'm 72. I've been piling on more and more and more. You know, over time we do. The fear of finding a job, the fear of losing a job, the fear of finding a relationship, the fear of losing a relationship. And then we start to fear death. So these things kind of happen, and they're a little insidious. We don't really recognize it at all times. And then there's those not enough fears. Not good enough, not capable enough, not attractive enough, not smart enough. I mean, go on and on and on. Most of these fears are totally unnecessary. We've been created by the One. We are a perfect soul in a human experience. All those unnecessary fears limit our happiness. Do you remember as a child the day your parents or someone took the training wheels off your bike? How exciting that was? Oh my gosh, the fear. And then 2 seconds later, the exhilaration. I'm doing it, I'm doing it. Well, in his book, Roger tells this delightful story. And since he's a minister and he told it in his congregation, I think it's okay if I tell it here. But it's a story about a little boy who got his training wheels taken off, and he was so excited. He put his bike in and he went up to the top of a big hill in the neighborhood. He's going to ride that bike down that hill. So he rides the bike, and it's going faster and faster, and it's getting wobblier and wobblier, and he crashes and he hurts his elbow. And he jumped up and he said, "I'll be damned." Takes his bike, goes back up the hill. He's going to do it all over again. Bike gets real wobbly and crashes, and it rips his pants. It goes, "I'll be damned." Well, there was a little preacher in a house sitting on the front porch nearby, and he heard the little boy. And he said, "You know, son, if you shout out, 'Praise to God,' things will go a lot better." So the boy hopped on his bike, went back at the top of the hill, started downhill, and he made it without crashing. It was a miracle. He jumped off the bike and yelled, "Praise to God." All of a sudden, his elbow healed, the rip in his pants healed, and the preacher's going, "I'll be damned." I thought that was so cute, because some of us after the first crash would say, "Yeah, I've had enough of this." And even as adults, if we try it once and it doesn't work, and we just say, "No, thank you," like me in skydiving, I go, "I'm not afraid of it, I just don't have a taste for it." But sometimes we do that, and we're putting our lives on the layaway plan. It's there, and I'll do it when I get around to it. So there are 3 common beliefs that distort our relationship with fear. The first one is, my needs may not be met. If in our childhood our needs didn't get met in any way, shape, or form, we may have that same grip of fear as an adult when we get into relationships. And Teal wrote about a gentleman who had 2 jobs and then did part-time jobs on the side, so he didn't have any time for his family. Finally, his wife said, "Would you go to counseling and figure out why you're so obsessed with earning money?" So he went to this counselor, and the counselor found out that when he was a child, his father, when they saw people rummaging through garbage cans, his father would tell him, "If you don't work hard, if you don't grow up and work hard, you're going to have to dig through garbage cans just to eat." And that instilled in him such a fear that he worked, even though he had plenty of money. And so now he had a new perspective. Oh, it was a childhood fear. And so now I can carve out plenty of time for my family. He recognized the fear was false evidence appearing real. In his mind, he had evidence that he would have to eat out of a garbage can because his father said so. He had a fear of the future that was not happening. And that's what true fear is. It's proof that whatever you're afraid of isn't happening. So it's interesting, because the second common belief is, my problems are bigger than I am. Fear just erects a stop sign right in front of you, says, "Stop, the problems are bigger than you are, you're never going to get it answered." But Ernest Holmes wrote, "There's a power for good in the universe greater than we are, and we can use it. We're not alone. If we feel alone, then any problem looks huge. It can stop us from finding a solution. we get stopped at our own red light. I remember last month when we were using Wayne Dyer's book for inspiration, that he was a very logical, agnostic person, didn't believe in God. And finally, a friend said to him, "You know, Wayne, imagine millions of pieces of plastic, steel, metal, fabric, wire, carpet, foam, thread, strewn out in a junkyard, and a tornado comes up and whips it all up into the air. And when it all falls down, all the pieces come together to form an airplane. What are the chances of that happening, Wayne?" He said, "No, not likely." But what are the chances in the universe that our human body every day is full of things that keep us healthy, or if we're not paying attention, not healthy? There must be an intelligence, a divine intelligence at work here. And at that moment, Wayne Dyer got it. He just turned on that light. And he realized there's never a problem too big that doesn't have a solution. And I admire him for admitting that. A third common belief is it's better to think small. Be careful. It's dangerous to do that. You might get hurt. You might be embarrassed. Just be satisfied with what is. Can't you just be satisfied with what is? I've heard that a few times in my life. We can become excessively cautious, holding back. We won't go out of our comfort zone, but we're made to go out of our comfort zone. When people say, "Don't dream too big because you'll be disappointed," how could God disappoint you? There's no way. But then Teal wrote about a farmer who was sitting on his porch, and he had this big field, and he didn't plant anything in it. So when harvest time came around, there was nothing to harvest. And that's what holding back is. We're holding back from our good. And Teal says, fear is a friend that shows up to tell us it's time to open up our heads, open up our hearts, connect with spirit, and give it love. So what are the dreams you're holding that are still in the layaway plan, or you're thinking are too big for you? Do you feel intimidated, overwhelmed, paralyzed by fear? I've met people that have. But Ernest Holmes again says, there's a power within us which is greater than any condition, and we can contact it. It knows no obstacles. It transcends everything because it is the final act of creation, God dwelling in our own souls. Pretty powerful. So, can you develop a greater trust in your source, your soul? Can whatever fear you may be feeling, even how simplistic it seems, can you make it a doorway to have a better relationship with God? We are spiritual beings, and we can change our thinking, change our life, immerse ourselves in the true security of being in communion with the One. Can we really make fear a friend? So Teal offers 3 steps to make fear a friend. Link up, look up, and leap up. Now, I thought that was kind of cute. Link up with our consciousness of spirit, that indwelling presence, so that power can flow through us. Admit the fear. We can't lie to God, all-knowing. Reveal the fear. Invite the presence of God to help us with that, to find the love, to walk through it. Linking up also happens naturally when you join a community like this, when you can be with like-minded individuals who are all on this path. And it's easier when you participate, like in the men's group or Sacred Sisters, or take classes or be on a Seva team. These are all places that are very, very safe for you to share the twists and turns in your life on this spiritual path. I think thinking also includes paying attention to our intuition. So I pulled another book off the shelf, Gavin de Becker's book, The Gift of Fear. And he states that contrary to what we believe about intuition in our dogs, in our canine friends, our intuitive abilities are vastly superior. A dog can sense and react to fear in humans. Charlie will tell you about that later. They know instinctively that a frightened person is dangerous. But we have something extra. We have judgment. We get an intuitive hit and then we go, really? Is that really true? Is that right or wrong? What direction is it going to put me in? We want it to be logical, but intuition's not always logical. But a dog is not distracted. When they feel fear, they don't judge. Gee, could it be different? Should it be that there's really fear there? The dog only perceives what is, what's happening right here and right now. They don't ever overcome fear by going, oh, it's probably nothing. I think that's hilarious. Now, cats, I don't know. You only talked about dogs. So he said intuition is always right, and there's two ways to know that, because it's responding to something we're doing, being, or thinking, and it always has our best interest at heart. That's a relief to know, isn't it? It's spirit-driven. But then our interpretation of this intuition, our judgment of it, may change our minds and we don't pay attention to that intuition. Because our intuition is meaningful. But not every intuitive hit is a high alarm. Danger, danger, danger. It's not that. So we do have to be a bit discerning. The next level down from a high urgency of fear is apprehension, suspicion, hesitation, doubt. Those gut feelings, those nagging feelings, they're all indicators. And so there's time to open up our mind and communicate with that. Because there's another signal we're not always looking at, and that's the humor in the situation. I was trying to think of a situation that turned on me and became humorous. I couldn't think of any, so if you have one to share with me later, please do. I was reading an article in Psychology Today, and it said that humor is the one thing that fear cannot handle. It can't handle humor. So we need a healthy dose of humor in our lives every day, something fun every day, to address those simple fears. For instance, your username and password is incorrect. When you see that on your computer screen, doesn't that instantly take you into, oh no, another bill, another IT specialist I need? I mean, it just goes, phew. Oh, I hate those moments. But they're part of our lives today. But if we use it in a humorous way, go, how could this computer know I'm wrong? You know, I have an address book, A to Z, and every username and password for everything is in that book. And so I always have it at hand. And so sometimes I still get that, but it's helpful to have a little security book at hand. The next step in making fear a friend is to look up when our heads are down. Open up to the world, open up to the space, the universe, the stars, the universe that where we were created in. Everything was created in this universe. There's no need to feel paralyzed to action. But sometimes we only want to see what we want to see. If you've ever had that experience. Or we spend time rehashing what happened in the past, or just trusting what's going to happen in the future, all taking us out of the present moment. And the last step is leap. And Emerson wrote, go ahead and do it. You'll have power after you do what you fear. And De Becker writes that real fear is a signal intended to be very brief, not lifelong or months long or weeks long, just very brief. Because unanswered fear, if you just ignore it, like if I ignored my plane ride, it can be very destructive. Because fear is not an emotion. I really want you to hear it. It's not an emotion like sadness or happiness that lasts a longer time. Fear is pretty quick. And it's not like anxiety that hangs around and hangs around. Real fear is a survival instinct that sounds the presence of danger. So many of your fears may just be anxiety, worry, concern. But unwarranted fear can assume a power over this that stops us, that shuts us down. What we know about fear is whatever we're fearing is not happening. The very fact that you fear something is solid evidence that it's not happening. But it can help you make a decision to change your direction. Sometimes it's not fear, sometimes it's worry or anxiety. And worry is a form of self-harassment. I like that. It won't bring us solutions. I know some people in my life who feel if they don't have something to worry about, it's not a good day. As if worry's going to help. But worry energy settles somewhere in your body. I looked it up in Louise Hay. There were plenty of reasons, and I'm not going to tell you them, but I thought, that too? Oh my gosh. All that negative energy settling in our body. Anxiety is another one that always is caused by uncertainty, the inability to predict the future. And it comes from the root word that means to choke. Isn't that interesting? To choke, it wants us to stop because we're uncertain about the future. So both worry and anxiety are very destructive energies, and they're very unnecessary. Because honestly, didn't you make it through yesterday just fine? And you made it so far today just fine? Now, I might have some worry in certain parts of the world if I had to live there, but hey, I live in Shasta County. This is great. My world's not a dangerous place. It's a very, very safe place. And so from my soul's perspective, all my needs are being met. There's no problem too big that I can't solve without spirit. And if I played less than, if I was afraid to come up here and give you a talk, what good would that serve my soul? What good would it serve contributing to the greatest good of this community? So I was sharing with Judy. I had to give her a signal. I was sharing with Judy. It's time to get up. And Ram Dass reminded of this, Judy. We're all affecting the world every moment, whether we mean to or not. Our actions and states of mind matter because we're deeply interconnected with each other. We're working on our own consciousness, which is important, and we do it in every moment, but bringing love to any situation is the ultimate supreme act. Bringing love to any situation is the ultimate supreme act. So perhaps today is your day to address worry, fear, anxiety, little nagging things that might take you away from the truth of your own beautiful spiritual nature. So let's do a prayer on how easy it is to do that. Because it's all God. When I go back to it, it's all God. It's all good. It's all good. And each one of us was made in that goodness. And when we forget it, we know where to go. Back to spirit. There's goodness all around us, in us and through us. There's goodness here this morning, and goodness in these shoes that I'm wearing that stick to the carpet, and goodness in all of it. And so I celebrate you in taking a good look at life. Anything holding me back? Anything I'm worried about? Any nagging feelings that our family or friends are having problems? Now we know what to do. We need to bring love to the situation, the creative action of God, love, to the situation. And see the perfection in all. So I'm so grateful to share this news, this good news with you this morning. Allowing you to walk out of here in perfect freedom and love. What better gift can there be? Thank you, God. And so it is. Thank you.